Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome your GBTA Executive Director and COO, Mike McCormick.
My first guest was sworn in as TSA's 5th administrator in July of 2010 after spending 26 years with the FBI. John Pistol has extensive national security and counterterrorism experience, and he currently oversees the security operations for airports, railroads, mass transit, and pipelines in the U.S. Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome TSA Administrator John Pistol.
Well, good afternoon, evening, and thanks, Mike, for that kind introduction. Especially regarding my name, as an FBI agent, I had a lot of fun for all those years calling people on the phone and saying, "Hi, this is John Pistol with the FBI," and there'd be a pause, like, not quite sure. In fact, one time I was working on organized crime in New York City, almost 25 years ago, and I called an individual that I was interested in talking with and told him that, and he didn't miss a beat. He said, "Yeah, and I'm Mr. Lion at the zoo, so what do you want to make of it?" So we went from there. Well, anyway, I'm grateful for the opportunity to share some thoughts and insights and get your questions and thoughts and perspectives on how we are doing in transportation security today, and noting that as GBTA members, you comprise the world's largest network of business travel professionals, so it's an honor for me to be here. And now, as we know, 3 weeks from today, the world will pause to observe the 10th anniversary of the tragic attacks of September 11th. And to honor the memory of the nearly 3,000 victims from that tragic day. It's almost been 10 years also since TSA was created. We were created by Congress in November of 2001. Throughout that decade, TSA's mission has been to protect the nation's transportation systems, to ensure freedom of movement for people and goods. And every day, the men and women of TSA work to do whatever we can to prevent such an attack as 9/11 or other catastrophic attacks from happening again. Now, while a significant amount of our time, energy, and resources is dedicated to aviation security, as was mentioned by Mike in the introduction, we also have responsibility to safeguard, in partnership with state and local partners, other modes of transportation. And there's a broad range of TSA initiatives that you may be familiar with, again, in all likelihood with those state and local partners and private industry. So today I want to share with you some of the progress we've made in these last 10 years, as well as discuss a few ways that TSA will build on the work that's been done thus far to further enhance security while also seeking to improve the travel experience whenever possible. So since 9/11 and the stand-up of TSA and the Department of Homeland Security, we've taken significant steps, not just in TSA and DHS, but the U.S. government writ large, again in partnership with private sector, to keep Americans safe, and our transportation network is much safer today than it was a decade ago. Now, there's a number of steps that we've taken, again, mostly in partnership, but they include establishing and enhancing our layered approach to transportation security by continuously deploying new technology, evolving our processes, and applying intelligence analysis to our security measures in real time. I want to briefly review some key milestones we've achieved in meeting some of the 9/11 Commission's recommendations. That's one of the metrics that are used to see whether we are making progress. And all of these steps help make traveling safer for you and your loved ones. So as of last November, thanks to the success of our secure flight program, individual passenger information for 100% of domestic and international airlines with flights into, out of, and within the United States is being checked against government watch list. May not sound like a big deal, but I can assure you it is. And that fulfills a key 9/11 Commission recommendation ahead of schedule. Now, we also, of course, screen 100% of checked and carry-on baggage for explosives and other dangerous items. Inline baggage screening systems streamline the checked baggage screening process, maximizing that baggage throughput, which is so important, and reducing the number of physical injuries of TSA employees as a result of having the lifting of heavy bags. So now getting back to my earlier comment regarding TSA's layered approach to strengthening security, we know that each of these individual initiatives are capable of preventing a terrorist attack. But the key is in the melding together of those different layers. So we in TSA have more than 20 layers of security which combine to keep the traveling public even safer, especially in light of what the Defense Department, the intelligence community, and the law enforcement community do to inform and help support these efforts. And the Yemen cargo plot being one of the best areas one of the best examples when it comes to cargo security and intelligence. Now, multiple layers of security provide multiple opportunities for us to detect and ultimately deter terrorists, and that's the bottom line for us. Many of these layers simply did not exist 10 years ago. But what do the next 10 years hold for transportation security and the future of travel, especially aviation travel? Because of your work, it's likely that you're familiar with and heard the phrase risk-based security in the last few months or last couple years. At TSA, when we talk about risk-based security, we're not talking about a specific program per se or a limited initiative. On the contrary, risk-based security encompasses a full suite of enhancements, some of which we have recently begun, and others we will soon be testing at select airports around the country, redefining how aviation security works in the United States. As a result of significant enhancements in security over the last decade, TSA is able to better refine our approach, moving away from a one-size-fits-all construct through a better use of intelligence to inform the screening process. Over the past few months, we've begun or are about to begin proving out several concepts that represent the next steps of our transformation into more of a risk-based, intelligence-driven organization. And as with all the concepts we're evaluating, the driving force behind these efforts is looking at how we continually enhance transportation security. One of these ideas is well known, at least in name, and that's a trusted traveler or known traveler program that evaluates how to expedite the physical screening process for travelers we know and trust the most, and travelers who are willing to share some information with us about themselves before they travel. So doing so will allow our officers to more effectively prioritize screening and focus our resources on those passengers we know the least about, or of course those on the terrorist watch list. We'll begin testing this known or trusted traveler concept in the fall, and to make it happen, we are partnering with U.S. Customs Border Protection, their Global Entry, Nexus, and Sentry programs, as well as U.S. air carriers and airports, of course. The bottom line goal for us is to provide the most effective security in the most efficient way. Expedited screening may include a dedicated lane, the ability to keep shoes on, and possibly keeping laptops in carry-on bags. Of course, nothing will ever guarantee expedited screening. Passengers will always be subject to random, unpredictable measures, and of course this is to prevent terrorists from gaming the system, so we must continue to maintain these aspects of our security screening processes. We're also working with airlines, especially ATA and pilots unions, on identity-based screening of pilots. Additionally, we're currently testing how we screen children using risk-based, intelligence-driven strategies. Both are components of TSA's move toward a more risk-based, intelligence-driven approach. Now, in many of our initiatives, interactions with travelers play a key role in our ability to successfully implement risk-based security protocols. One such effort is currently underway, being tested at Boston's Logan Airport, and it involves an expansion of a program we call SPOT, S-P-O-T, which stands for Screening of Passengers by Observation Techniques. We also continue pursuing the latest technology to keep us ahead of evolving threats. For example, we are now deploying a software upgrade to our AIT, the Advanced Imaging Technology, machines that maintain a high level of security while further strengthening privacy protections. We anticipate that this new software will increase throughput, reduce the number of officers required to staff imaging technology machines, and eliminate the remote viewing areas that are currently needed to view those images for privacy purposes. In the next 10 years, TSA will continue to enhance security and our counterterrorism focus, because after all, that's why we were created, to prevent terrorists from repeating 9/11, while also improving screening for passengers wherever possible. In conclusion, I am confident that testing and implementing initiatives such as Trusted Traveler hold great potential to strengthen aviation security while significantly enhancing the overall travel experience. And as we look forward to working with you to accomplish this paradigm shift, I want to thank you again for inviting me to join you. I look forward to your comments, your questions, your ideas, as we work jointly to promote the free movement of people and goods with world-class security. Thank you. All right.
Thank you.
Okay, Mike.
Have a seat.
Thank you.
Thank you again for coming. Appreciate it. So you were working with the FBI on September 11th. Where were you on that day, and how did that experience shape your approach to your current position with TSA?
I was in New York, but actually upstate. I was in Syracuse doing what we called a routine inspection of our FBI offices, and had just done an outside interview contact at a media station, and then had gone to interview the chief federal judge there to assess how the FBI office was doing. And it was while at the judge's office that the first plane hit the first tower, and obviously something amiss. So I excused myself, went back over to the FBI office, and there watched as the second plane hit the second tower. My first reactions were, it was just surreal, and almost immediately, this changes everything. So it's that focus of saying we have to have a sense of urgency of what we're doing to prevent that from happening, and then also how can we work interdependently, not only within the governments worldwide, but with private industry to do everything possible to keep that from happening again.
Yeah, you mentioned private industry. In the corporate world, we're always looking for ways to stay in front of the competition, but in your world, the competition is terrorists. So how do you stay in front of tomorrow's threats?
I mentioned these multiple layers of security that we have, and the best layer of security that is available to us is intelligence. And I use the example of the Yemen cargo plot from October of last year as a great example, because it was a foreign intelligence service that gave us the information about those two packages that you recall had the toner cartridge just filled with explosives in them. They gave us the specific information about those packages, and so we were able to track those down and prevent those two planes, the UPS and FedEx plane, from blowing up. So that's the type of intelligence that is needed. So I start every day with an intelligence briefing from intel around the world, trying to be informed as to what the terrorists are doing. Of course, the latest information about they're talking about even doing surgically implanted devices, bombs, inside people. So what can we do working with our foreign partners to try to identify and prevent those folks and get on planes coming to the U.S.?
So is more about intelligence than technology, or both?
It's a combination. So it's intelligence, it's technology, and it's human interaction. And so it's the key is the melding of those in multiple layers, and really trying to focus on how we can identify a possible terrorist before he or she ever gets to an airport.
Right, okay. Well, let's talk about screening at the airport. We're both frequent travelers. We're both fathers. Do you feel completely confident that the screening machines in the airports are safe?
I do. I have great confidence in what the various outside studies have done in terms of assessing the safety. So I go through frequently, and I'm not a scientist, but I rely on those studies to give me the highest level of confidence. And the analogy that I've been told and go with is that going through the machine one time is equivalent of about 3 minutes of flying at altitude, 30, 35,000 feet.
Okay. And no concerns with your children
No.
going through them?
It's their choice. If they decide they want to opt out, and then they get a pat down and they go that way.
So how does TSA balance security and protecting the rights of the individual along those same lines?
Yeah,
right?
so something that I think really came to fruition, or came to a head, I should say, last Thanksgiving, and everybody recalls the National Opt-Out Day that people were looking at. And so the key is that we can reassure people that we are there to help protect them and their loved ones, that we're doing everything possible in the most professional way to do that. And there's, because of how terrorists have evolved, willing to violate our societal norms, putting a bomb in your underwear, come on.
Right.
Shoe bombs, surgically implanted. So everybody wants to be assured that they arrive safely and that they get home to their loved ones or on their business trip. And by the way, everybody else wants to make sure that you on that flight have also been thoroughly screened. So it is a balance. I will say with 1.8 million people who we screen every day, 12.5 million every week, over 50 million a month, over 625 million a year, there are bound to be those who feel like we have not done something properly. And I am sympathetic to those, but also want to give the highest level of assurance to all the American people that we are doing everything we can to provide the best possible security while respecting the privacy and civil liberties of everyone.
Right. Well, on the subject of screening, we sent a camera crew out to a few random folks on the street back in Alexandria, and we asked them how they feel about the job TSA is doing. So let's take a look at that, and then
TSA means to me that it's the men and women who are responsible for securing travel in the United States.
When I have to take off my shoes and they do a total check, I feel safer going through the airport because other people are being checked. I know I'm okay, but I'm glad that they're all being checked.
I'm naturally an anxious person, and with 2 kids, definitely want to go through whatever it is that they need to do for everyone to feel secure.
I think if you follow all the rules that they have, like you take everything out of your pockets, take your shoes off, then it just goes quicker.
When I think back of when I first started traveling, and you would just walk right through, and you could bring pocket knives through, you could go meet people at the gate. I mean, obviously it feels 10 times safer than that, so you have to keep it in perspective and of what it used to be and what it is now.
As far as I'm concerned, it gives me peace of mind when I get on a plane.
So that was literally all the interviews. And those comments were positive. They seemed to be, people on the street seemed to be understanding of TSA and their role. So, and we seem all to be, agree about the need and the concern for safety, but how do we balance that against the needs of the business traveler who want predictability and want to have a smooth and efficient process of getting through the airport?
Yeah, that's one of the challenges, and that's one of the paradigm shifts that we are working through at TSA to try to provide, again, the best possible security, but in a way that promotes the best movement of people. And one of those issues is I would like to be predictable to say, every time, here's what you can expect at each of the 450 airports around the country, and here's what it'll look like. The issue that concerns me is the more predictable we become, the more terrorists can basically go to school, learn from our predictability, and that's why, even though it's an inconvenience and it's not the most enjoyable perhaps, but we've got to have random and unpredictable screening. So under our new risk-based security initiative, for all of you who are frequent travelers, if you're a member of CBP's Global Entry, the goal is to expedite your physical screening because we know a lot more about you before you ever get to the checkpoint. And the more we can do that, I think the better it will be for the traveling community. That being said, you may go through an expedited physical screening 9 straight times. The 10th time, you may go through the regular screening or even secondary screening just to, again, keep the system honest.
I'll take 9 out of 10. That wouldn't be too bad, right?
Maybe 8 out of 10, we'll see.
Right, okay. So you're rolling out this Trusted Traveler beta and working with some of the major airlines. Are you bullish about it, about where we sit 2 or 3 years from now?
I am cautiously optimistic. Okay. I've learned both in my last job and this job to try to manage expectations, right, and to try to underpromise and overdeliver. So I'll just say I'm cautiously optimistic, but it does have the potential for being a game changer.
It's great to hear. So what can we do as an industry to help?
Well, there's a number of things, and that is many of which are already ongoing. The airlines, as you mentioned, are working closely with us to establish some criteria of their frequent travelers, histories, and again, I don't want that information, I just want to be able to ping against the airlines. And so airlines are working to modify some of their IT systems, and so that's a necessary issue. But I think just the general support, when the press asks about it, how is this working, to say, yes, this makes sense for business because it enhances security in that we are able to focus our time on those we know less about and expedite those that we have a higher level of confidence in.
Right. Okay. So let's switch gears a little and talk about private aviation, because a number of the buyers in the room have executives that do use private aviation. Are you satisfied with the level of security there if 100% of the bags are not checked?
Yes, I am satisfied from the standpoint of both we and industry are doing the things that address the highest vulnerabilities and the highest risk, if you will. There's always more that can be done. It's a question of what's the return on investment, how do we buy down risk, if you will, right, for those additional investments. So as we work through the rulemaking process on general aviation, we've been working closely with industry, some of you in this room, to move that forward in a meaningful way that is practical, it's pragmatic, and it enhances security.
Are we going to see changes coming in the future?
I think there will be some changes. It's a question of what is, again, practical and pragmatic. So it doesn't make sense to have us as a regulator issue some draconian rule that, yes, it can be complied with, but only at great expense and marginal increase to security. So that's something that, again, we've worked very closely, and I, again, want to manage expectations, right, but feel like we're on the right track for that new rule.
So, final question. It's kind of a general one, but it's a bit of a philosophy. Is it your job and your agency's job to eliminate risk?
Our job is to mitigate and to manage risk. We are not in the guarantee business, the 100% guarantee. If people wanted that, we would probably see 2-hour lines at checkpoints. Right. The global supply chain would come to a grinding, maybe not a halt, but would slow down substantially because of that level of getting to where we are doing the risk mitigation, risk management to try to get to risk elimination is simply not practical.
Right. Well, thank you again for coming. We appreciate your time. This has been terrific. Ladies and gentlemen, Mr. John Pistol.
Thank you. Thank you, Mike.
Thank you.
Appreciate the opportunity. Thank you.
I got a phone call this morning from one of our oldest customers. He fired us. After 20 years, he fired us. Said he didn't know us anymore. I think I know why. We used to do business with a handshake, face to face. Now it's a phone call and a fax. Get back to you later, with another fax probably. Well, folks, some things gotta change. That's why we're gonna set out for a little face-to-face chat with every customer we have.
But Ben, that's gotta be over 200 cities.
I don't care.
Every business is a people business. The 50,000 people who are the employee owners of United never forget that.
Boss.
Come fly the airline that gets its power from its people.
Ben, where are you going?
To visit that old friend who fired us this morning.
Come fly our friendly skies.
Wow. That United commercial resonates today just as strongly as it did almost 3 decades ago. Is that amazing? Which brings me to my next guest. Jeff Smizek is the president and CEO of United, the world's largest airline. Jeff joined Continental in 1995. He became president of the airline in 2004, and he assumed the role of chairman, president, and CEO of the new United Airlines in 2010. He is currently overseeing one of the largest mergers in airline history. So please welcome United Airlines' Jeff Smizek. Thanks for coming.
Look, thanks for having me out here today. I want to talk a little bit about, the topic was the world's largest airline. And the new United is the world's largest airline, but that isn't particularly important to me. It's not particularly important to my management team. What's important is to become the world's leading airline. And that's what we're working on. And that's a process, and that takes time. But the reason that we merged, the reason we brought Continental and United together is, well, I guess the best way to do it is sort of ask you to do a thought exercise. If I ask you as a thought exercise to create the world's leading airline, and I gave you a blank sheet of paper, and I said the only constraint is to make sure that this airline is certificated in the US, that's it. You'd create an airline with hubs on the East Coast, like New York and Dulles, a hub on the Gulf Coast for the north-south flows, Houston, hubs on the West Coast, San Fran and LA, and for the flows off to the Pacific, and the strength up and down the West Coast, and a hub on the third coast, Chicago. And you'd have Denver and Cleveland thrown in, and with that, you'd also have a spectacular fleet, a modern and fuel-efficient fleet, and a really great aircraft order book, and continuing to take brand new airplanes. You'd have the world's largest loyalty program. The loyalty program of the new United, Continental and United together, the new Mileage Plus program, has more members than there are citizens of France worldwide. You'd have experienced people, people who know what they're doing, people who want to give good service. You'd have world-class facilities. You'd have the ability to optimize the fleet across that network. You'd create what we have today at the new United. Now, it is a process, and it does take time. We're a heavily regulated business. It takes time to bring work groups together. It takes time to go through the regulatory process. It takes time, and it takes time to adjust. But we have the assets and the people, the fleet, the facilities, the product, the people, to be the world's leading airline. And we are creating the world's leading airline largely for you, the business traveler. United and Continental have always focused on the business traveler. You're our bread and butter. You're the customer we serve. We take all customers, we love all the customers. But business travelers are particularly important, and so we're investing in that product. This merger is going to deliver between $1 and $1.2 billion a year in net synergies. And we're going to invest that back into our product, back into our fleet, back into our facilities, back into our people. And we're announcing today $550 million of investments in our fleet, not new airplanes. This is in the interior of airplanes. We're installing flatbed seats in the remainder of our existing international fleet. When we're done, we'll have 185 airplanes with flatbed seats, 185 airplanes, more than any US airline. We're taking United's great Economy Plus product and putting that across the entire Continental fleet. And when we're done, we're going to have more premium economy seating than any US airline. We're installing wireless on the 200 Continental aircraft that today have DirecTV. And it's not just any wireless, it's Ka-band wireless, which is the newest, best, fattest pipe there is that we're putting on board those aircraft. We've got RFPs to put Wi-Fi on the remainder of our mainline fleet, international fleet, and the remainder of the domestic fleet. The Airbus aircraft that we have today, 152 A319s and A320s, we're refreshing the interiors of those aircraft. We're putting in new bins that will double the bin size in those aircraft. The PS fleet that we fly from JFK to LAX in San Francisco, we're going to bring those airplanes in. We're going to completely gut the interiors and put in flatbed seats and Economy Plus and Economy and AVOD and Wi-Fi and power throughout the entire airplane. A spectacular product for the Transcon out of JFK. On our 747-400s, where we've done a good job with the IPTE product, the International Premium Travel Experience, the International First Class and Business and Economy Plus and Economy, in the back of those airplanes are deficient in the entertainment, and we're going to be putting streaming wireless on those aircraft. So any customer gets on those airplanes, taking their iPad, their iPhone, their computer, any Wi-Fi enabled device, will be streaming video, and they'll be able to select from the various videos that we'll be streaming. So we're investing in the product, over $500 million just in the existing fleet. That's not counting all the aircraft we have on order. Next year alone, we're taking 19 brand new 737-900ERs and 6 brand new, beautiful Boeing 787 Dreamliners, a truly game-changing aircraft. And we're delighted to be the North American launch customer for the 787. But despite all that wonderful things that I'm talking about, what we really need to do is make sure we deliver good service. That's incredibly important. That's why I and my entire management team are focused so heavily on the culture of the new company. Because we're operating the new United on the basic 2 principles that my mommy taught me. You treat other people like you'd like to be treated, and you never tell a lie. We call that dignity and respect, treating each other and our customers with dignity and respect, and direct, open, and honest communication. And investing in the tools so we can let you know what's going on. Because it's very frustrating when a flight's delayed and the customers don't know why. With the wireless technology we're investing in, the technology we're investing in, the hundreds of millions of dollars we're pouring into technology, in the future we'll be able to communicate so much better with our passengers. And make sure that when the flight is late that we can re-accommodate you. And if you don't like the re-accommodation with the Wi-Fi, you can change it en route. There's so many things that we're doing to focus on making sure that we're easy to do business with, the business customers want to fly us, leisure customers want to fly us. Our goal at the New United is to have a carrier where our coworkers want to work, are proud to work, enjoy coming to work every day, trust each other, trust management, give good service because they want to, not because they're trained to or told to, because they're proud of where they work, because they want to. We want to have an airline that customers want to fly, and we want to have an airline that investors want to invest in. We'll be taking the profitability, the sustained and sustainable profitability of the New United, and we're going to do something really radical with some of that money. We're going to pay our debt when it falls due, and we're not going to always refinance that debt. We're going to de-leverage the business, de-risk the business, so we can be here, as the commercial showed from 30 years ago, the next 30 years, and 30 years, and 30 years beyond that. So I'm going to thank you for having me here today. I want to particularly thank you for the business. There's a lot of high rollers in this audience. There's a lot of people who control a lot of business, and I want to thank you for the business. I want to let you know that I know that we need to earn your business, but I am confident that when we're done integrating these carriers, we're going to have a spectacular airline that you'll want to fly. Thank you very much. I feel like I'm on a talk show here.
You are. Hey, I got my United Airlines pen, so I got to switch out pens here, so I'm very appropriate. Well, you talked a lot about the merger, but we'll get back to that in a minute. I want to dig right in with something that is very important here to our audience. You may have heard that airlines and GDSs have been in the news a lot lately, maybe in the courtrooms a little bit, and about concerning the future of travel distribution. Where does United stand on this?
Well, Mike, we want to be easy to do business with.
Right.
We want to be in all distribution channels, or as many as we can be in. We are rapidly evolving as a business, as you know, with the unbundling of our product, and the rebundling of our product, and the technological change, and our growing ability to communicate directly to customers. And it's important that our partners, whether they be partners as GDSs or partners in online travel agencies or others, keep up with that degree of technological change. But we do want to be in a broad array of distribution channels. At the same time, those distribution channels have got to be cost efficient, and they've got to be technologically adaptive to the products that we are creating and delivering. And although we've had this, what it was colloquially called unbundling, there are many, many, many more things to come. And we have to make sure that the GDSs can keep up with the degree of change of the airlines.
So your plans for Direct Connect, does Direct Connect grow? Or?
Well, I guess I view the United.com site or now also the Continental.com site merging into the United.com site as direct consumer, right? And I think that, you know, what grows is going to be based on consumer demand. I mean, we're going to be where the customers want us to be. We want to be on every shelf we can be on. There's no rule, however, that says that, you know, Campbell's soup has to be on the Kroger shelf. Campbell's soup could be on the Safeway shelf or the Jewel-Osco shelf or the Dominick shelf, right? But we want to be where there's a cost-effective distribution, and certainly the web for us is our least cost distribution channel. But that doesn't mean that I would expect all travel to go through the web. No.
Right. Okay. So switch topics. You've been critical from lack of support that you as an airline have been getting in Washington. From your perspective, what's broken in Washington? And what would you have them do differently?
Well, what's broken in Washington is pretty tough for the amount of time we have, but
we'll add another couple hours if it helps.
I won't even go there.
It's a topic I like talking about.
I think that fundamentally the U.S. lacks an aviation policy.
Right.
And I think it's important that we have an aviation policy. I think that aviation is a good. It is important for the exchange of people and cargo and ideas and you know, it's an unalloyed good. And to tax this more heavily than alcohol, tobacco, and firearms, to brutally overregulate us, to enact exceedingly oppressive regulations that have often very little consumer benefit, but cost us an enormous amount of money to comply, is not a good aviation policy. And we clearly need also investment in our air traffic control system, because there's so much value in doing that. There's so much. There's not in terms of the time value and the throughput, but the fuel efficiencies alone. And there are many studies that show that we could save 10% of our fuel burn if we had a modern air traffic control system. Right. And you know, the New United, we burn 100 million barrels of jet fuel a year. And even only half of that in the United States, saving 10% of half of that's a lot. Right. And it's not just for us, but it's reflective in consumer prices, in the time of people holding. I mean, there's so many things that we can improve. And this is technology that exists today, and can be used today. And it's just a shame that we're making so little progress.
Part of that, in terms of the cost of modernizing air traffic control, means that you also have to retrofit or fit your aircraft to also, take advantage of it. Is United willing to incur those costs to do so?
You bet. Actually, we have a lot of equipage today already, because we have quite a modern fleet. Right. And we're going to be taking a new aircraft, have a lot of the equipage. The problem is a lot of the equipage we're just carrying around, burning fuel with the weight, but no benefit. And so, I don't mind pitching pennies with the government. What I don't want is pitch my penny, no other penny comes in, because we invest in the equipage and then there's no utility to the equipage. Well, then we've made a mistake.
Right. So you mentioned aviation policy. Specifically, let's talk about the Department of Transportation. What kind of grade would you give them right now?
Well, I'm not in the business of grading a regulator, so I think that's a pretty dicey thing to do. So I
thought I'd try.
Yeah. I think we'll just stick to pass-fail here.
Okay. And?
Pass.
Oh, okay. I'd ask. So now let's get back to the merger. United is now the largest airline, but does that make you the leading airline?
No, not yet. No, we're becoming the world's leading airline, and we have work to do. There's no question about it. I mean, first of all, integrating these two carriers takes time and effort, and we're working hard to do that. We've got to be a we're a global airline. We have to have a globally competitive product. Right. We're working on that. Many of our aircraft are at that state. Others are not. There's no question about that. And we're just, as I announced earlier, we're investing $550 million to bring the existing fleet up to make sure it's globally competitive. And of course, we'll be taking new aircraft. We've got 50 787s on order. We've got 25 A350s on order. We've got options for a whole lot more. We have the best single carrier network in the world. We have lots of opportunities to grow. So, but it will take time. We've got technology we need to invest in. We've got facilities that we've got great facilities we need to continue to invest. For example, in Houston, we're in the first phase of a $1 billion project in Terminal B that we're starting soon in the first phase of that, of a three-phase investment in Houston. So we have a ways to go. We need to bring our work groups together. We need to make sure we've got the right culture. So we have a ways to go. But I'm very confident that we will become the world's leading airline. We're creating the world's leading airline. We've got tremendous assets and tremendous people. You know, I've been in the business 16 years, and this is the first real opportunity that sort of anyone at Continental or United has had to create something as durable and spectacular as what we're doing here. And I'll tell you, I've got a lot of very excited folks as a result.
Any surprises during the merger? I mean, positive or negative?
Well, you know, there are always surprises. I think what surprised me the most is just the huge number of decisions that have to be made to harmonize just policies, for example.
Right.
For example, I think this was in the paper, but you know, at Continental, when we were loading pets into the aircraft, we had the pets facing the aircraft. You know, had the pets facing away from the aircraft. You have to make which way does the dog face. I mean, I never would have guessed that was important in a merger, but it turns out it is. And there are all these things.
Is that what they were picketing about out there?
There are all these things that you have to do. And it just takes a lot of time. I mean, the way I analogize is like a big table with a whole bunch of dominoes, but they're not all connected with each other. And your job is to go and knock the dominoes down one by one. They're dominoes you never imagined would be there. And sometimes when you knock one down, you got to kind of go to knock it down, but you can. And you got a lot of smart people and interested people and enthusiastic people bringing these two carriers together.
Right. So you mentioned about you know, becoming the largest airline, and now we talked about being the leading airline, but clearly your competition isn't just domestic here in the States. So on the global landscape, whom worries you the most? Are there any carriers in particular?
Well, look, we're a global. Your point is is well taken and spot on. We compete not against the Deltas and the Americans of the world. We compete against the British Airways, Iberias, the Air France KLMs. We compete against the Middle Eastern carriers.
Right.
We compete across the entire globe, and we view our competitors. We don't look at, you know, when you see slides in our management decks, I mean, they're not just how we're doing against American or Delta or anybody else. Right. We look at the whole world and how are we doing across the whole world, and competitively, looking at the product, what do our global competitors do? Because we're a global airline. Right. So, you know, in this very brutal and brutally competitive business, I worry about everybody. I mean, if I didn't, I'd be insane.
Right. Yeah, because I read somewhere that Emirates is poised to be or at least they poised to become the largest airline by 2015, or at least give you a run for the money in that respect. So when you mention Middle Eastern Airlines, I mean, that's, again, your competition is global. Do you see, is being largest as important as being leading?
No, I don't think it is, but I will tell you that let's talk about Emirates for a moment, if we could. Emirates is a good example of an airline that has a government that has a superb aviation policy. Emirates is Dubai understands the value of air travel, understands the value of having a huge hub for the traffic flows, and there's a lot of natural traffic flows where Dubai is appropriately situated. Right. You know, Dubai views Emirates as an integral part of its economic development, of its cultural development, of its transportation and tourism, of its cargo business, of its trade. I mean, it's an enlightened policy with an enormous amount of government support. And I don't mean government support in terms of subsidies. I'm not saying that. What I'm saying is focus and attention to the value of air travel, something the United States government lacks. And that's unfortunate. And Emirates is a well-run and successful airline, but it also has a government that cares and doesn't throw roadblocks and doesn't overtax it and doesn't overregulate it and doesn't beat it down.
Right. I think your audience.
So ask me how I really feel.
Yeah, right. Well, last question. We watched that United commercial. I still can't believe that was 30 years ago, you know, when that ran. Looking to the future, what are we going to say about United? What will United look like 30 years from now?
Well, I think I think even far sooner than that. But I think 30 years from now, I think United will continue to be the world's leading airline. I think it'll have a great product. I don't know what the airplanes themselves will look like in 30 years. By then I'm sure there'll be some kind of replacement for narrow-body aircraft beyond the NEO or whatever Boeing's going to call the re-engined aircraft. The Rio, I don't know, whatever they'll call it. But I think that the United will be what we plan on United to be as we integrate the carriers and invest in it. I think it'll be a carrier very focused on business travelers. I think it'll be a carrier that'll have a spectacular network, as it does today, only a larger network than that. It'll be a carrier that will have cutting-edge technology and great onboard service, and we'll have a culture where people enjoy coming to work every day and are proud of what they do and give very good service.
Good answer. Well, everyone, ladies and gentlemen, Mr. Jeff Smisek.
Thank you so much for having me.
Thank you. Thank you for joining us tonight. Have a great week, and we'll see you all at the reception. Thank you.